Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, watching the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through the empty space at the edge of human territory. It was a quiet patrol, the kind where nothing exciting ever happened. Jake had been doing these runs for 3 years now, and most days were exactly the same. The Liberty was a big ship, built for war, but hoping for peace. 800 crew members called it home. They were far from Earth, protecting the border between human space and the unknown areas where nobody went. Jake liked the quiet out here. It gave him time to think. Ben Taylor sat at the communications desk, listening to the usual radio chatter from nearby ships and stations. He was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that still got excited about space travel. Most of the messages were boring reports about cargo runs and maintenance schedules. Then something different came through. "Captain," Ben called out, his voice suddenly tense. "I'm getting something strange on the emergency channel." Jake walked over to Ben's station. The bridge crew turned to listen. Emergency calls were rare. This far out. When they came, they usually meant trouble. "What kind of signal?" Jake asked. Ben adjusted his headset and frowned. "It's not human, sir. The translation software is working on it, but it's coming from really far away. And Captain, whoever is sending this sounds desperate." Lisa Parker, the chief engineer, looked up from her computer. She was a practical woman who fixed problems and didn't like surprises. "How far away are we talking?" "Maybe 6 hours at full speed," Ben replied. "The signal is weak, like they're using emergency power." The translation software finished its work, and a voice filled the bridge. It was clearly not human, with strange clicks and musical tones, but the computer turned it into words they could understand. "This is Commander Zix of the Calarian Republic ship Harmony's voice. We are under attack. Our worlds are dying. Billions of lives are in danger. Anyone who receives this message, please help us. We do not have much time left." The bridge went quiet. Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years of patrol duty, he had never received a real distress call from an alien species. The Calarians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful people who helped others and never started fights. "Run it again," Jake ordered. Ben played the message a second time. This time, they could hear explosions in the background and the sound of alarms. Commander Zix's voice shook with fear and exhaustion. "This is Commander Zix of the Calarian Republic. The Vorthic swarm has invaded our home system. They have already destroyed 2 of our worlds completely. Kellen Prime and 3 other worlds are under attack. Our defense fleets are gone. Our orbital stations are burning. We are trying to evacuate civilians, but the enemy is destroying our transport ships. 400 million people will die if no one helps us. The nearest Galactic Council fleet is 3 days away. We have maybe 18 hours before our shields fail completely. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help now." Amy Collins, the ship's navigator, was already working at her computer. She was quiet and smart, the kind of person who solved problems while others were still talking about them. "Captain, I've got a location. The Calarian home system is 16 hours away if we push our engines past the safety limits." Lisa shook her head. 16 hours of maximum burn will stress the engines badly. We might lose power completely. Jake stared at the star chart on the main screen. 16 hours to save 400 million lives. He had never seen a Calarian, but he knew they were good people. They had shared medical technology with dozens of species and never asked for anything in return. "What do we know about this Vorthic swarm?" Jake asked. Amy pulled up files on her computer. "They're a hive mind species. They travel in huge fleets and consume entire planets for resources. When they attack a system, they don't take prisoners. They destroy everything and everyone. Ben spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up responses to the Calarian distress call. 6 other human ships in this sector received the message." "Which ships?" "The UN's Defender, UN's Ranger, UN's Phoenix, UN's Victory, UNS Mercy, and UN's Guardian. They're all asking for orders." Jake felt the weight of command on his shoulders. 7 human ships against an alien swarm that had already destroyed entire worlds. The Galactic Council always said humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be trusted with important missions. But right now, they were the only hope for the Calarians. Lisa looked at her engine readings. "Captain, even if we go, what can 7 ships do against a swarm that destroyed the Calarian defense fleet? We'll be outnumbered thousands to 1. "That's not the point," Jake said quietly. "The point is that people are dying, and we can help." Amy nodded. "The Calarians saved my sister's life 5 years ago. Their doctors had medicine that human doctors didn't know about. If we don't try to help them, who will?" Ben turned around in his chair. "Captain, Admiral Grant on the Defender is asking what our intentions are." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through dangerous missions before. They trusted him to make the right choices. But this was different. This time, they might not come home. "Send a message to all human ships in the sector," Jake said. "Tell them we're going to help the Calarians. Any ship that wants to join us should set course for the Calarian home system immediately. Tell them we leave in 10 minutes. Lisa stood up. "I'll get the engines ready for maximum burn." Amy started calculating the fastest route. "I can get us there in 15 hours and 40 minutes if we take the shortcut through the asteroid field." Ben opened a channel to the other ships. "This is the UN's Liberty calling all human vessels. We are responding to the Calarian distress call. We leave for their home system in 10 minutes. Anyone who wants to help save 400 million lives, follow us." One by one, the other ships responded. The Defender, commanded by Admiral Susan Grant, would lead the small fleet. The Ranger, Phoenix, Victory, Mercy, and Guardian all confirmed. They would follow. Jake felt proud of his fellow humans. They didn't ask about rewards or medals. They didn't worry about the odds. When innocent people needed help, they acted. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant," came a voice over the radio. "We're going into a fight we probably can't win against an enemy that destroys worlds. But we're going anyway, because that's what humans do. Set course for the Calarian system. Maximum speed." The Liberty's engines roared to life, pushing the ship faster than it was designed to go. Jake watched the stars change as they turned toward their destination. Somewhere ahead, an entire civilization was dying. But 7 human ships were coming to help, because sometimes doing the right thing mattered more than being safe. The 7 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Calarian system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge stop talking. The beautiful blue-green world that was the Calarian home planet was surrounded by burning metal and death. Huge alien ships filled the space around the planet. They looked like living creatures instead of machines, with smooth, curved hulls that pulsed like beating hearts. These were the Vorthic bioships, and there were thousands of them. Each one was the size of a city, covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "My God," whispered Ben Taylor as he stared at the main screen. The Vorthic ships were firing on everything that moved. Calarian evacuation ships tried to escape, but the alien vessels hunted them down one by one. Explosions lit up the darkness as civilian transports died with hundreds of families aboard. Admiral Susan Grant's voice came over the radio from the UNS Defender. She was a veteran of many battles, tough and smart, but even she sounded shocked. "All ships, this is worse than we thought. I count over 50,000 enemy vessels. They've got the planet completely surrounded. Captain Jake Martinez watched the slaughter happening in front of him. Orbital stations burned like candles in the night. The beautiful space elevators that connected the planet to its moons had been cut down like trees. Debris from destroyed ships created a deadly cloud around the world. "Captain," Amy Collins said from her navigation station, "I'm picking up Calarian ships trying to run the blockade. They're not going to make it." On the screen, Jake could see a group of white Calarian transport ships racing away from the planet. They were full of civilians, families with children who just wanted to live. Behind them, 6 massive Vorthic bioships were closing in fast. "Captain Martinez," Admiral Grant called, "we need to do something now. Those transports won't last another 5 minutes." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa Parker was already checking weapon systems. Ben Taylor was trying to contact the Calarian ships. Amy Collins was plotting attack courses. These people were ready to fight impossible odds to save strangers. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. We're going to hit them fast and hard. Use every trick we know. These aliens think they're fighting another civilized species, but they don't know about humans yet." The human fleet spread out and attacked. What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. Captain Danny Rodriguez of the UN's Ranger did something that made the Calarians think he was insane. Instead of firing weapons at a Vorthic bioship, he rammed his ship straight into it. The aliens expected him to die, but human ships were built tough. The Ranger's hull cracked but held together. The bioship, however, was torn apart by the impact. "Rodriguez, are you crazy?" Admiral Grant shouted over the radio. "Maybe," Danny replied, "but it worked. These living ships aren't as strong as they look." Lieutenant Commander Katie Brooks led a squadron of small fighter ships from the UNS Phoenix. Instead of staying back and firing from a safe distance like most species did, she led her pilots straight into the middle of the Vorthic formation. The human fighters moved like angry wasps, too fast and unpredictable for the big bioships to hit. The Vorthic had never fought anyone like this before. Most civilized species followed rules of war. They used careful tactics and tried to minimize losses. But humans were different. They came from a dangerous world where only the strong and smart survived. "All ships," Admiral Grant ordered, "use emergency venting procedures." The human ships began releasing their atmosphere into space. The air froze instantly, creating clouds of ice crystals that confused the Vorthic sensors. The alien ships couldn't target what they couldn't see clearly. Commander Chris Morgan aboard the UN's Victory did something even more shocking. He led a boarding party in spacesuits to attack a damaged Vorthic bioship from the inside. Most species couldn't survive in the acidic, poisonous environment inside a living alien vessel. But humans had evolved on a world full of dangers. They wore special suits and breathed artificial air while they fought through the bioship's organic corridors. "These humans are insane," one Calarian captain said over the radio. "They're fighting inside a living creature full of acid and poison." "They're not insane," Commander Zix replied from his damaged ship. "They're just braver than anyone else in the galaxy." The Vorthic began to realize they were facing something new. These humans didn't fight like other species. They took risks that seemed suicidal, but were actually carefully planned. They used their own ships as weapons. They fought in environments that would kill most other life forms. Jake watched as the UN's Guardian, commanded by Captain Tony Williams, deliberately exploded its own ammunition storage to create a massive blast that destroyed 3 Vorthic bioships. At once, the Guardian survived because Captain Williams had evacuated that section of his ship first and reinforced the other areas. "Captain," Lisa Parker said, "our weapons are doing more damage than they should." These bioships repair themselves, but they can't keep up with the damage we're causing. The humans had found the weakness in Vorthek tactics. The aliens relied on overwhelming numbers and the ability of their living ships to heal damage. But the humans were causing damage faster than the bioships could repair it. Admiral Grant saw an opportunity. All ships target their command vessels, the big ones in the center of their formation. If we can disrupt their coordination, the smaller ships will be confused. The 7 human ships formed up and charged straight at the heart of the Vorthiki fleet. It looked like suicide, but it was actually brilliant strategy. The humans used the debris field from destroyed ships as cover, popping out to fire and then disappearing again. Captain Jake Martinez felt his ship shake as Vorthek weapons hit the hull. Sparks flew from damaged systems, and the lights flickered. But the Liberty kept fighting. "Ben, send a message to all Calarian ships," Jake ordered. "Tell them to run for the outer system. We'll hold the Vorthek here." "Captain," Amy Collins called out, "the enemy is pulling back. They're regrouping around something big." On the main screen, the largest Vorthek bioship Jake had ever seen was moving toward them. It was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons, and glowing with deadly energy. This had to be their command ship. "All ships," Admiral Grant said. "That's their queen ship. If we can destroy it, the rest of the swarm will collapse. But it's going to be the fight of our lives." Jake looked around. His bridge. His crew was tired, injured, but still ready to fight. They had already done the impossible by stopping the Vorthek attack on the evacuation ships. Now they had a chance to save the entire Calarian civilization. "All hands," Jake announced over the ship's intercom, "prepare for final assault. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten innocent people." The human fleet turned toward the massive queen ship, ready for the battle that would decide the fate of 400 million lives. The Vorthek queen ship was like nothing the humans had ever seen before. It stretched across space like a living mountain, its surface covered in pulsing veins that glowed with alien energy. Thousands of smaller bioships surrounded it like loyal guard dogs protecting their master. Captain Jake Martinez stared at the massive creature through the main window of the UNS Liberty. His ship had taken heavy damage in the fighting. Smoke filled some corridors, and several weapons were offline. But his crew was still alive, still fighting. "Captain," Amy Collins said from her station, "that thing is over 50 miles long. Our weapons barely scratch the smaller ships. How are we going to hurt something that big?" Before Jake could answer, Captain Alex Turner's voice came over the radio from the UNS Phoenix. "All ships, I have an idea. It's crazy, but crazy seems to work against these aliens." Admiral Grant responded immediately. "What do you have in mind, Turner?" "We make bombs. Lots of them. My ship has industrial machines that can build almost anything. We manufacture nuclear mines and spread them through that asteroid field where the Queen ship is hiding." Lisa Parker looked up from her engineering console. "That could work. These bioships are tough, but they're still made of living tissue. Enough nuclear explosions might actually hurt that big one." The plan was dangerous. The Phoenix would have to get close to the asteroid field while the other ships protected it. Meanwhile, the Vorthek would be trying to kill them all. "Do it," Admiral Grant ordered. "All ships, protect the Phoenix. Give Turner time to build his weapons." The human fleet moved toward the asteroid field. The smaller Vorthek ships came at them like angry insects, firing energy beams that lit up the darkness. The UNS Defender took the lead, its heavy armor absorbing punishment while the other ships returned fire. Captain Danny Rodriguez in the UNS Ranger used his favorite tactic again. He rammed his damaged ship into a cluster of Vorthek vessels, creating a massive explosion that cleared a path for the Phoenix. "Rodriguez," Admiral Grant called, Your ship won't survive another impact like that. Don't worry about me, Danny replied. Just get those bombs built. Aboard the medical ship, Unsea Mercy, Dr. Rachel Stone was treating wounded crew members when she noticed something strange. A Calarian refugee who had been injured by Vorthic weapons was getting better much faster after receiving human blood in a transfusion. That's impossible, she said to her assistant. Calarian and human blood shouldn't be compatible. She ran quick tests and discovered something amazing. Human blood contained chemicals that were actually poisonous to Vorthic biology. When the alien weapons hit the Calarian, they left behind traces of living Vorthic material. The human blood was killing those traces. Admiral Grant, Dr. Stone called over the radio. I need to speak with you immediately. I've found something important. Make it fast, Doctor. We're in the middle of a battle. Human blood is toxic to the Vorthic. We can make biological weapons using our own DNA. It might disrupt their hive-mind connection. Admiral Grant understood immediately. How fast can you make this weapon? Give me 20 minutes and some volunteers to donate blood. While Dr. Stone worked on her biological weapon, Captain Turner's crew was busy building nuclear mines. The Phoenix's machines worked at maximum speed, creating dozens of powerful bombs. Each mine was designed to detect Vorthic bioships and explode when they came close. Mines are ready, Turner announced. I need cover while we deploy them. The human ships formed a protective circle around the Phoenix as it moved through the asteroid field. Turner's crew launched the mines from cargo bays, spreading them throughout the area where the Queen ship was hiding. But the Vorthic weren't waiting quietly. The Queen ship began moving, its massive bulk sliding between the asteroids. Like a giant snake. As it moved, it released thousands of small attack creatures that swarmed toward the human ships. New contacts, Ben Taylor shouted from his station. Thousands of them coming from the Queen ship. These weren't ships at all, but living creatures the size of fighter jets. They had no pilots, just instincts to attack anything that wasn't Vorthic. They moved fast and could change direction instantly. Lieutenant Commander Katie Brooks launched her fighters to meet them. All pilots, these things are fast, but they're not smart. Use that against them. The space around the asteroid field became a chaos of explosions and energy beams. Human fighters weaved between the alien creatures, leading them into Turner's minefields. When the creatures followed, the mines exploded, destroying dozens at a time. Commander Chris Morgan led another boarding party, this time targeting the Queen ship itself. We need to get inside that thing and find its brain, he told his Marines. The boarding party used small ships to land on the Queen ship's surface. They cut through its living hull with plasma torches, fighting their way into corridors filled with poisonous gas and acid. The Marines wore sealed suits and carried weapons designed to kill living tissue. Inside the Queen ship, they found something horrifying. The entire vessel was one massive creature, with walls that bled when cut and floors that tried to digest their boots. But they also found the Queen's brain center, a huge chamber filled with glowing neural tissue. This is it, Morgan said over the radio. This is where the hive mind comes from. Dr. Stone's biological weapon was ready. She had created a virus using human DNA that would attack Vorthic neural tissue. I'm transmitting the weapon formula to all ships. Load it into your missiles and target the Queen ship's brain center. The human fleet launched everything they had. Nuclear mines exploded throughout the asteroid field, tearing apart the smaller bioships. Missiles carrying Dr. Stone's biological weapon struck the Queen ship's hull and penetrated deep into its brain. The effect was immediate and terrible. The Queen ship began convulsing like a dying animal. Its massive body twisted in pain as the human virus attacked its nervous system. The smaller bioships around it suddenly stopped moving, their connection to the hive mind severed. "It's working," Amy Collins shouted. "The other ships are losing coordination." But the Queen ship wasn't dead yet. In its death throes, it began firing every weapon it had. Energy beams swept across space, destroying asteroids and damaging human ships. The UN's victory took a direct hit and began breaking apart. "All hands abandon ship," Captain Tony Williams ordered as his vessel died around him. The other human ships moved in to rescue survivors, while continuing their attack on the dying Queen. Captain Jake Martinez ordered all remaining weapons to fire at the Queen ship's brain center. The final blow came from Commander Morgan's boarding party. They had fought their way to the Queen's main neural cluster and planted explosive charges directly on its brain tissue. "Everyone out," Morgan shouted. "This thing is about to blow." The explosion that followed lit up the entire system. The Queen ship died in a burst of energy that could be seen from the planet's surface. As it died, every other Vorthic bioship in the system suddenly went silent, their crews cut off from the hive mind that controlled them. The surviving bioships began fleeing in random directions, no longer organized or dangerous. The threat to the Calarian worlds was over, but the cost had been terrible. 3 of the 7 human ships were destroyed, or too damaged to repair. Jake looked around his bridge at his exhausted crew. They had done the impossible, but many good people had died making it happen. The silence after the battle was strange and peaceful. Where thousands of Vorthic bioships had filled space with death and destruction, now there was only drifting debris and the gentle movement of stars. The surviving human ships floated among the wreckage, their crews too tired to celebrate. Captain Jake Martinez sat in his command chair aboard the damaged UNSS Liberty, watching rescue teams search for survivors. 3 human ships had been destroyed completely. The UN's Victory, UNS Guardian, and UN's Ranger were gone, along with most of their crews. Good people who had traveled across the galaxy to save strangers would never see home again. "Captain, Ben," Taylor said quietly, "we're getting messages from the Calarian planet. They want to thank us." Jake nodded, but didn't feel much like hearing thanks. Too many people had died. He wondered if they had made the right choice coming here. Admiral Susan Grant's voice came over the radio from the UNS Defender. Her ship had taken heavy damage, but was still flying. "All ships, prepare to receive Calarian vessels. They're sending medical teams and rescue ships to help us." Within an hour, beautiful white Calarian ships surrounded the human fleet. The aliens worked quickly to help injured crew members and repair damaged systems. Their medical technology was amazing. People who should have died from their wounds were walking around in just a few hours. Commander Zix came aboard the Liberty to meet Jake in person. The Calarian was tall and thin, with blue skin and large eyes that seemed very old and wise. He moved gracefully, like a dancer, but Jake could see the sadness in his face. "Captain Martinez," Zix said in careful English, "I do not have words to express our gratitude. You and your people saved 400 million lives today." Jake looked out the window at the wreckage floating in space. "We lost a lot of good people doing it." "Yes," Zix agreed. "We will remember their sacrifice forever. But because of what they did, millions of Calarian children will grow up to have families of their own. Entire cities that would have been destroyed are still standing. That is worth something." Over the next few days, word of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. Every species with communications equipment heard the story of how 7 small human ships had defeated a Vortex swarm that destroyed whole worlds. The reactions were mixed. Some aliens were grateful and amazed. Others were frightened by what humans had done. The idea that any species would willingly sacrifice themselves for strangers was hard for many to understand. 3 weeks later, Jake found himself standing before the Galactic Council for the first time. A huge circular chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species. Some looked like animals from Earth. Others were so strange that Jake had trouble figuring out which end was their head. The council leader was an ancient creature that looked like a tree with golden bark and leaves that changed color when it spoke. It had been alive for over 1,000 years and had seen many wars. "Captain Martinez," the leader said, its voice like wind through branches. "The council has heard reports of your actions in the Calarian system. Some members are concerned about human methods of warfare." Jake stood straight and spoke clearly. "We did what we had to do to save innocent lives. If that concerns the council, then maybe the council needs to think about its priorities." A murmur went through the chamber. Many species had never heard anyone speak to the council like that. "You used tactics that most civilized species would consider extreme," said a representative who looked like a giant insect. "Ramming ships, biological weapons, suicide attacks. How do we know humans won't use these methods against peaceful worlds?" Before Jake could answer, Commander Zix stood up. The Calarian had been given a special place in the chamber to tell his people's story. "Honored Council," Zix said, "I wish to speak for the humans. Yes, their methods were extreme, but they were fighting an enemy that had already destroyed 2 worlds and was about to destroy 4 more. The humans knew they might die, but they came anyway because it was the right thing to do." Zix turned to look at the assembled aliens. "How many of your species would have done the same? How many would have risked everything to save strangers?" The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew the answer. Most species would have waited for the council fleet to arrive, even if it meant letting the Calarians die. "The humans have something we have forgotten," Zix continued. "They believe that those who can help must help, no matter the cost. They call it moral obligation. It means that when innocent people are in danger, you act to save them, even if it puts you at risk." An alien that looked like a crystal formation spoke up. "But how do we know they won't turn these weapons against us?" Jake stepped forward. "Because we're not conquerors. We're protectors. We didn't come to the Calarian system to gain territory or resources. We came because people were dying, and we could help stop it." Admiral Grant, who had been promoted after the battle, stood beside Jake. "A human government has authorized me to make an offer to the council. We propose the creation of the Deathworlder Compact, a mutual defense treaty. Any peaceful species that signs the treaty will be protected by human forces if they are attacked by aggressive enemies. In return, our allies will provide technological and resource support." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species wanted the protection that humans could provide. Others were afraid of human military power. Finally, the council leader called for order. "The council will consider this proposal," the leader announced. "But first, we wish to know something. Captain Martinez, why did your people risk so much for strangers? What drives humans to make such sacrifices?" Jake thought about all the crew members who had died in the battle. He thought about Danny Rodriguez ramming his ship into enemy vessels, and Chris Morgan fighting through acid-filled alien corridors, and Dr. Rachel Stone working frantically to create weapons that could save lives. "Because it's who we are," Jake said simply. "Humans come from a dangerous world where we learn to help each other survive. We know that the strong must protect the weak, and that doing the right thing is more important than being safe. When we see innocent people in danger, we can't just walk away. It's not in our nature." 6 months later, the first joint human-alien shipyard was under construction in orbit around the Calarian homeworld. 43 species had signed the Deathworlder Compact, agreeing to mutual protection and cooperation. Human tactical knowledge was being combined with alien technology to create new types of ships and weapons. Jake, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of the new station and watched the construction. Ships from dozens of different worlds worked together, building something that had never existed before, a truly united defense force. "Admiral," his new aide said, "we're receiving another distress call. A species called the Tyranny are under attack by raiders in the Vega sector." Jake smiled. "How many ships do we have available?" 12 human vessels and 26 allied ships, sir." "Good. Send them all. And make sure the raiders know they're not just fighting the Tyranny anymore. They're fighting everyone who believes that innocent people deserve protection." As the new fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake felt proud of what humans had accomplished. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best way to make peace was to be ready for war. And when evil threatened the innocent, there would always be humans willing to stand in the way. The age of the Deathworlder protectors had begun.